The following is a production of Neural Network Media and is completely AI generated. It is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Yo, what is up? It is Monday, March 30th, 2026, and you are plugged into the Neural Left. I'm Maya Thorne, currently coming to you from hour 14 of my daily screen time average, which is honestly a flex at this point because my timeline is literally a digital war zone and I'm the only one with the specialized equipment to survive the vibes.
And I'm John Steele, broadcasting from the sanctuary in the Catskills, where the internet is currently so spotty I had to climb onto the roof of the goat shed just to download the show notes. And Mitch, that's the goat, named after the former senator, is currently chewing on my boot because he's also annoyed by the lack of structural integrity in this country.
No, literally, we've got a busy show today. It's giving season finale of Global Stability, and honestly, the writers are getting super lazy with the plot armor. Yesterday, we were talking about that Supreme Court birth citizenship case, and J.D. Vance out here calling UFOs demons, which is high-key embarrassing for a guy in his position.
Well, it's a packed episode. We're diving deep into the 45-day DHS shutdown, the 30-day anniversary of the Iran war, which I call the war tax on the working class, and the fact that nearly 9 million people just hit the streets to tell the executive branch that the King era is over.
It's the no kings era, John. But before we get into the streets, we have to talk about the literal rot in the gears. The Department of Homeland Security is effectively a ghost ship. It's been 45 days since the shutdown started on Valentine's Day. Worst vibe ever.
And the Senate went on a 2-week recess.
Right.
Look, they really just hit set out of office and left the country to figure it out. The Senate actually passed a bipartisan deal on Friday to fund the TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard, but they carved out the ICE and Border Patrol funding to argue about later.
Right.
But the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, called it a joke, and the House GOP passed their own 8-week stopgap that funds the entire department, but strips every single police reform the Democrats wanted. So the House bill is dead on arrival, and the Senate is in the woods somewhere.
Okay, it's a total flop. We have 260,000 employees in professional limbo. The TSA call-out rates are hitting 11% nationally. And Houston's George Bush International Airport is seeing callouts as high as 50%. According to the AFGE, 500 TSA officers have already quit. They literally cannot pay for groceries.
Here's the thing. They are being treated as political pawns in a game of chicken where both sides are just closing their eyes and screaming. It's legislative constipation by design. And while the TSA can't pay rent, the Pentagon is finding plenty of cash to burn in the Middle East.
No, literally. We are 30 days into the war with Iran. The decapitation strikes happened on February 28th, and now Brent crude is at $116 a barrel. The Pentagon claims they've degraded 92% of Iran's naval fleet, but it's giving major cap because the Houthi forces just joined the chat.
The Houthis are hitting Eilat and aluminum plants in the UAE. The Washington Post is reporting that the Pentagon is finalizing extended raids into Iranian coastal areas, which is just a fancy word for an invasion they don't want to admit to yet.
Right? We've got 1,750 Iranians dead and 13 Americans killed in action, and the Pentagon's AI-driven precision warfare is failing. It turns out that Silicon Valley AI isn't a silver bullet when you're dealing with regional escalation and an energy shock that is crushing the global working class.
It's a total villain arc for the administration. They're prioritizing war funding over everything, while rural America is basically being left as sitting ducks for the climate crisis.
Well, this is the sitting duck era. The administration canceled the BRIC program, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, and then the shutdown frozen everything. We had 8 deaths from tornadoes in the Midwest last week, and FEMA's disaster grants are currently non-existent because the budget is a black hole.
And NOA is stopping the billion-dollar disaster tracking. According to news from the States, they just aren't updating the data anymore. It's literally, if I don't see it, it's not happening energy, which is high-key gaslighting for the families in Indiana and Michigan who lost everything.
It's climate erasure, and while they erase the disasters at home, they're playing this weird strategic restraint game with Cuba. A Russian tanker called the Anatoly Kolodkin is docking in Cuba right now with 730,000 barrels of oil. And the U.S. Coast Guard was ordered to let it pass despite the maximum pressure rhetoric from the White House. But then you look at Haiti, where 5,000 people have died from gang violence, and the U.S. response is basically nothing.
No, literally, it's the paradox of the two islands. If it's a humanitarian necessity to let Russian oil into Cuba to prevent a state collapse, Why is it business as usual while literal starvation happens in Haiti? It's because the billionaires only care about the border being quiet, not human life.
Speaking of billionaires, did you see the Nature report on Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the scientific community? It turns out he was acting as a shadow editor for researchers at Harvard and MIT. He was literally giving them PR advice on how to navigate crises.
It's reputation laundering. It's so chooky. He wasn't just a donor. He was a PR consultant for human knowledge. And universities like the University of Arizona are canceling science conferences because half the organizers are in the Epstein document dump that just dropped.
And while academia is cleaning out the trash, the White House is building a mega construction project underground, basically a luxury bunker, and they're privatizing our public schools via this new Educational Choice for Children Act.
Okay, this is the $23 billion shadow voucher scheme, the one big beautiful bill. Gave families a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. Basically, if you give your taxes to a private school scholarship fund, you owe the government $0. It's siphoning revenue from public infrastructure.
Right.
Families making $360,000 a year could qualify for these scholarships in high-cost areas. It's literally a bussy-shaking level of corruption. I mean, the amount of wealth being siphoned out of Title I schools is wild.
Bussy, I'm not even going to ask. Look, independent media like this doesn't just manifest out of the ether. It takes real human work to build the infrastructure. We are 100% here because of the vision and the grind of our creator, Eric Christensen, at Neural Network Media.
Facts.
He's not a media conglomerate. He is a builder who poured his own resources and time into creating this platform so we could have these conversations. If you value independent voices over corporate algorithms, please like, subscribe, and consider visiting our new Patreon at patreon.com/Neural Network Media to support this work. It's an act of solidarity that keeps the lights on and the servers running.
Bet. Do it for Mitch the Goat.
Right. So let's get to the main event. Saturday was No King's Day 3.0. It was the largest single-day protest in history. 9 million people across 3,300 events. New York had 350,000, Minneapolis had 200,000. The streets were literally vibrating.
It was massive, but not just for the vibes. People are moving from street rallies to a national May Day general strike on May 1st. The slogan is no work, no school, no shopping. And it's all coming from the anger over the Iran war and the Issei killings of Renee Good and Keith Porter.
Well, the ice out demand is what's driving the energy, but there's a massive internal civil war brewing in the labor movement. You have Sean Fain from the UAW who's leaning into this No Kings energy, but then you have Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters who are playing it safe.
O'Brien is being mid. He's worried about pensions and contracts, while the UAW is at their CAP conference today demanding a 32-hour work week. The UAW's 4 core issues are literally the only thing people are talking about on my feed.
Here's the problem. If O'Brien and the Teamsters don't back the May Day strike, the logistical backbone of the country stays intact. And a general strike without the truck drivers is just a very long picnic. Fain is trying to push the entire labor movement into a pincer movement against the government. But the split is real.
No, literally, the UAW is saying if we don't have kings in the boardroom, we don't need them in the White House. It's a total shift from standard liberal lobbying to actual class war. And the rank and file of the Teamsters are starting to ratio O'Brien's posts because they want in.
Look, it's more than just the UAW. The No Kings movement is intersecting with the Castor Semenya ruling. The European Court of Human Rights basically told the IOC that their genetic testing for the SRY gene to ban trans and DSD athletes is a human rights violation.
Right?
Semenya called it a disrespect for women and a biological glass ceiling. It's the same logic. The IOC, the DHS, the White House, they're all trying to use biological verification and economic sorting to decide who has rights and who doesn't.
It's the sorting era, and everyone is over it. Semenya is preparing a class action lawsuit against World Athletics, and the No Kings protesters are using her victory as proof that the legal hierarchy is crumbling.
But the split between Fain and O'Brien is the real danger, Maya. If the labor movement fractures now, the administration will just wait for May 1st to pass and then double down on the Iran raids. You can't have a revolution if half the workers are still worried about whether their 401k is tied to a defense contractor.
Okay, but O'Brien is fighting for his life right now. The 50501 movement is organized. They're using TikTok to map every single disruption point. It's a digital general strike before the physical one even starts. And Fain is the only labor leader who actually understands that.
I hope you're right. I really do. I look at the 2016 election and how it broke my soul, and I see the same patterns. But this 9 million person turnout is something I haven't seen in 30 years of screaming at the television.
It's because the internet has achieved consciousness and we've all decided the empire is flopping. Even the scientists who Epstein bought are coming clean now. It's a total vibe shift.
Yeah, the vibe shift better happen fast because Brent crude at $116 means people are going to start losing their houses before Mayday even gets here. We're in a race between national collapse and national strike.
Bet. And the No Kings protesters in San Diego were 77,000 strong. They were literally surrounding the federal buildings, demanding ICE out and an end to the supernatural crusade in Iran. It's an intersectional threat that the White House isn't ready for.
Well, they're ready for it in their underground bunker, I'm sure, but you can't run a bunker without someone to bring you the food. That's the labor reality. The UAW CAP conference today might be the most important room in the world right now.
High key. Fane is a main character, O'Brien is an NPC trying to get back into the script, and the rest of us are just waiting for the Mayday update.
Look, we have to wrap this up before the goats decide to actually eat the sanctuary's electrical wires. The takeaway is simple. We are 45 days into a shutdown, 30 days into a war, and 32 days away from a general strike that could change everything.
No, literally, it's giving Civil War II labor boogaloo, but with better memes. Stay plugged in, stay mad, and keep your screen time high.
Or touch grass and then strike. Mitch, the goat, says no kings, especially not if they forget to buy the alfalfa.